Good morning, everybody. Until they load the slides, I'll just introduce myself. I'm Flavia. I'm the program manager for ABRL. I started back in February with Penn State. Prior to that, I was at DITRA in the Chem Bio office as a project manager, supporting the detection and diagnostics division, really just supporting the government on the projects from both technical perspective and acquisition financial perspective. And then before that, I was in the lab doing research in a biotech company in NIH. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the program management process that we do and that we offer. We have the process that starts with opportunities and the solicitation, as Elaine pointed out. Our team goes out to look for opportunities, and it goes all the way to award and post-award, and to the point where the project ends, and we also help with the project closeout. So just a little bit of additional things on opportunities. These are some of the agencies that we are currently targeting. As Kai went through all of them, I'm sure you guys all know the abbreviations by now. We do DITRA, JPO, which is the Joint Program Executive Office, DARPA, ARPA, DHS, and BARDA. We really look at their requirements and try to understand what is their needs. We do that, as Elaine pointed out, through conferences, meetings, checking out upcoming solicitations, whether it's the BAA, OTA, or any grants. Then we move on where we actually look at solicitations that were released and try to match them with the PIs here, see who wants to apply for those solicitations. Once we have the approval from the PI to move forward with the solicitation, that's when I really start working closely with them, and that's also when our research admin team joins us for the proposal. But they will talk a little bit more about their role on all of those processes and steps that we're doing. So I'll really just focus on really what I do. So once we decide on a solicitation, we work with the PI on completing their white paper or proposal, their cost proposal, and then eventually the statement of work. I'm really not the one who writes the proposals, as I don't know your science, and as Elaine said, I don't want to speak to your science because you guys represent it the best, but I will ensure that it follows format, that it follows what the government wants to see, that it flows properly. I review it, I can give you suggestions, we can work together on it. Prior at DITRA, I did a lot of proposal reviews and recommended of what performance to be awarded, and so I have experience in really what the government is looking for when they're reading your proposal. What I also do is that I facilitate meetings and telecoms between the PI and the funding agency. Depending on which acquisition strategy we pursue, you can have contact with the funding agency, especially with OTAs. And then Lane will talk a little bit more about that, but you can actually ask questions before you submit either your white paper or proposal, so that we really understand what the requirements are. And then there's some solicitations that we might partner you up with some of our industry partners, and so we will ensure that we facilitate those meetings between the PIs and the industry partners so that everybody knows what their role is and how to move forward and create a path forward. So once the white papers and the proposals are sent, we go to the selection process and negotiations. We again try to stay as involved as possible with the government, or as much as they allow us to do, and depending on the acquisition strategy again. And then we inform the PI of the selection, and we discuss a path forward. During the negotiation process, we'll facilitate discussions again between the government and the PI, and then we'll start working on your milestone deliverables, all the paperwork that is required prior to the award, data rights, IP technology, technology control plan, and so on. Once the award happens, I will start tracking the project to ensure that it follows what the government requirements are. So I will ensure that the project is struck from a cost schedule and performance perspective. I will also coordinate a pre-kickoff meeting with the PI so that we all and the team that the PI has so that we all are on the same page and know what the expectations are, go over the deliverables that the government requires, and try to set up a path forward. We also coordinate the kickoff meeting with the agencies. That's always a requirement from the government. And then on a monthly basis, and I'll go through the project management slides shortly, but then on a monthly basis, I will update all those slides, meet with the PI, discuss any issues, and then just do that on a monthly basis. And then at the end, we coordinate the project closeout. So this is a templated program management slides. Sometimes they're more customizable depending on the project. Sometimes the project is big and has a lot of subcontractors. Sometimes there are different documents or requirements that are needed. But for the most part, this will give you an idea of really what we're tracking. And so first slide, of course, is the title of the project, the PI, and the college that they pertain to. The next slide is really an overview of your project. If somebody were to ask you, what is your project about and what the status of it is, this slide will really give you a quick idea about it. So I don't know if I have light, but in the left-hand corner, you have the acquisition structure. You know who the customer is. You know what type of acquisition strategy will be, either OTA, contract, or grant, who the prime is it Penn State, is it somebody else, is Penn State a sub? So all that information will be there. A quick summary of what the technical scope of the project is. On the right-hand side, it's really a quick overview of the project status for cost, schedule, and performance. So we track that by quarters for each year. What the colors mean is that if it's red, that means you're delayed and there's really no path forward right now as to how to get back on track. If it's yellow, it means you're delayed, but you do have a path forward to get back on track. And if it's green, then you're fine with all of them. And then if there's any risks with what's going on, either cost, schedule, or performance, then we make sure that we update that. As the government always wants to be updated on what's going on, and especially if it's delayed, they want to know exactly what the risks are. And then on the bottom right corner, I keep track of the deliverables. Every project is different. They either want quarterly, monthly, annual. So whatever it is, that would be very customized to the specific project. And then on the top right, we'll give an overall status of the project. Is it all on track? Is it slightly off track, and so on. Then I go a little deeper into the project. I put down what the award date, when the project started, what the total funding is, what the total period of performance is, and then how the structure of the project is. Does it have 1 year with 2 years options? So I do the period of performance for each of those years. Keep track of the milestones, what the project requires, their percent completion, and then a little bit more details on the deliverables with due dates. Then we start focus on funding, because government loves funding and they love to have their money expended. And your science might be okay, but if you're not spending your money, they might not like you anymore. So we keep track of the period of performance again, how much money you budgeted for each year, how much money you actually received, how much you expended in the encumbrance, meaning that it's in the system, but it didn't, or it's about to get in the system, it's not there yet, what the actuals are and how much funds you're remaining. If there's any comments or issues that the PI needs to be aware of or no, and then I do a little visual graph of the money just so that you guys kind of see it, a quick view where we are. And then I break it down even further per year. And so every year you have different categories that you propose funds from and you expend. So I keep track on what you planned, what you're actually spending, and how much you're remaining. Sometimes you'll spend from a category that you didn't propose, and so we have to keep track of that because you have to subtract money from another category. So for each year I do one of these. And this is what I update on a monthly basis. We go through this with the PI, ensure everything is fine, and then just solve any issues from there. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Yes.
I'm a project manager also. So I'm just wondering what types of systems that you use for project management with this particular process. Like, how are you inputting all the information?
So I actually have the research admin team that will be talking a little bit about that.
Okay.
I only have access to SIMS, but they're the ones who have access to all the financials, so they're the ones who pull the reports and then send them to me, and I create the tables for the funding. As far as the technical progress, I just have to stay in touch with the PI at all times and their team, so that I know how the project is going. And so, like right now, we're managing a DARPA project. We're always in touch with the PI, with the DARPA program managers, and we get the funding from the research admin office to keep track of all of that. But I personally don't have access to the finances.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
For the other transactions mechanisms, if you're doing a research instead of a prototype, for the other transactions funding mechanism, if you're doing a research project rather than prototype, and I'm aware that it has to be 50% from someplace else, and then they'll match the 50% of the funds. Is that correct?
So actually, Elaine will have an OTA brief a little later in the day, and so she can explain more of how the OTA is working. But for OTAs, it always has to be a prototype involved.
Okay.
Yeah, but she'll be able to answer more about OTAs. Yeah.
All right, sorry.
No worries. Anybody else? All right. Next up is Walt McVeigh. He'll do a quick brief on the data enclave that we have.